Give us the backstory on this case.
Well, the backstory is, for those of you who haven't been glued like we have been, you have a police officer who was off duty. She had just worked a 13-and-a-half-hour shift, which is really too long for anyone, especially a police officer. She gets off duty. She still has her uniform on. She lives in a place not too far from her job, but she has a neighbor. She lives on the 3rd floor. Her neighbor lives on the 4th floor. She parks on the 4th floor of her garage accidentally. She walks into what she thinks is her apartment on the 4th floor. It's directly above her apartment. The door is slightly ajar. She walks in and she sees Botham Jean in his apartment, but she thinks it's hers, sitting down, watching television, eating a bowl of vanilla ice cream. She shoots him dead in his apartment because she says, it's an intruder in her apartment.
Now, when we first heard the story, people, and we've talked about it, thought, I never heard anything like this. Yeah. You walk into someone's apartment, he had a red rug in front of his apartment. She did not. He, to your point, was sitting down on the sofa. Yeah. And all of these became key points for the prosecution. Yes. Whether or not she, A, walked in to the home and addressed this person. What was the interaction? She said she wasn't in the home under interrogation from prosecutors. We learned a lot more from her about what was happening in her mind when she walked through there.
We did, and what was interesting is a lot of people are saying, my goodness, this trial just lasted a week. And I think it only lasted a week because it wasn't a whodunit. You know, the O.J. Simpson trial lasted 11 months. This case only lasted 1 week because it wasn't a whodunit, it was why? Why did she do that? And the jury just didn't buy her excuse that this was just a horrific mistake, really, I think, in large part because of the evidence that came out at trial. The ME, the medical examiner, testified that the bullet had a downward trajectory, which means he was just getting up when he...
Which you would do if someone walks in your home.
He was just getting up from his seat while he was watching television with the ice cream. The other thing that was very interesting is a lot of the neighbors testified that they did not hear any verbal commands, like a police officer generally would do, which is, you know, stay where you are, don't move, police officer here, what are you doing in my apartment? Nothing like that. The other thing that was very interesting, I think, about this case in terms of legal precedent is that she argued the castle doctrine, which is sort of like a stand your ground argument, which basically means when you are in your home, that is your castle, that is your sanctuary, you are allowed to defend yourself even with deadly force. But guess what? That wasn't her castle.
That wasn't her home.
That was his castle. Right?
And now she faces she faces now a maximum of life in prison.
Yes, it's about 5 years to 99 years. Now, the jury could have found her guilty only of manslaughter, which was about 2 to 20 years, or they could have acquitted her, or murder, which is what they found her guilty
Which I think is a surprise to a lot of people.
It was a surprise to a lot of people. It wasn't a surprise to me, because we talked about this case on your show, I think last week or a couple weeks ago. Last week, that's right. And I wasn't surprised by this, because this was a cut and dry case for me. But what was interesting to me was my friend Jamil Smith tweeted out today. He said this: I keep longing for the day when we are not surprised by justice. And that hurt me to my core, because we shouldn't be surprised.
But we know why. We know why.
We are surprised. And what's interesting is, you know, race was not brought up, not once in this trial. The officer was a white woman. This was a black man, an accountant.
It wasn't brought up in the trial. It was brought up in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, it was never brought up at trial. The jury consisted of 4 African Americans. No, 7, I'm sorry, 7 African Americans. And I think that people, especially the African American community, at this point are feeling we can't go to Starbucks and be unbothered. You know, we can't drive and be unbothered. We can't even barbecue and be unbothered. We can't be in our own homes having ice cream and watching television and sit there and not be shot dead. And so I think people are surprised, unfortunately, at this verdict, but I am happy that justice was served.